Welcome to ConverStayShuns. I am Devin Boyd, aka Lyrical Instrumentalist.
And I'm Key.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about taboo relationships. So if y'all heard our podcast last week, we kind of started to talk about it a little bit at the end, but today that's what we're going to get deeper and delve more into. But before, like I said, we also like to compress and before we get into these heavy topics. So as always, Key, how's your day been going?
Man, Devin, my day has been crazy. I actually left my full-time job today.
Like you left?
I left it. I packed up everything and I chunked the deuce. So, I am nervous. I'm terrified.
Wow.
I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing with 2 kids? Shout out to my man for having some semblance of stability. He's 100% in support.
Oh, that's cool.
So that definitely, I'm appreciative of that. But yeah, I left my job. So, it's a mixed bag of emotions. I was there for 2 years and I really just kind of did a lot in the community, in the realm of like community engagement and art, in policy development, and just really kind of vouching and advocating for creatives, and especially creatives of color. So, yeah.
When you just said that, it made me feel a little nervous because, Tia and I, that's we're trying to move that route, trying to get her, like I said, full-time doing what she does, and then I follow behind. But yeah, like 2019, we're trying to make some changes. So
yeah, definitely. And I don't know what it was that, there were a couple of things. I loved my job, but it was becoming to be a high stress, high anxiety environment. It had always been that, but I think when you then start internalizing that stress and anxiety, and then it begins to be transferred to staff and to other people, you got to know your worth, and you got to know when, to hold them and know when to fold them.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think, on the, still on the topic of taboo relationships, it was actually Tia's cousin who, did my tarot card reading.
Awesome.
And I always said I would never do anything like that. And he was laughing. He was like, me either. I don't know how I got to be reading people because he was like, I was always like, I would never open that realm or that portal. And I like a lot of scary movies. I've done my own like research and like, different religions where they deal with like Ifa and, just Orishas and things like that. And so I'm just like, I don't know. So I was really nervous about it. But to me, it was crazy because it was literally the day that it then, like, my job kind of was on the line. And it was a idea of walking away or staying. And I had chose to walk away, but I still had the option to stay.
Yeah. And
it was really him that kind of determined that, because I was, had the tarot card reading, and my first card I pulled, he said, you're in the middle of like a job transition, like a big, and I was like, how the hell do you know that?
Wow.
Yeah. So he was just like, you're in the middle of like a big change, like a job transition. And it had literally happened earlier that day. And so when he said that, and I've always been like, people just be talking shit.
Right.
What they be talking about. They be saying stuff real vague. So it's like hit or miss. I'm going to give you this blanketed general statement.
It can apply to anybody.
It's really hard to be wrong. Like, you'll die. Duh. Eventually.
Right.
Shit, you ain't really tell me, So, yeah, but it was really, I pulled like 3 cards, and I know he said one was that it was going to be a really major like job transition.
Yeah.
Another one was that I'm struggling to find balance. And then another one was that, there's going to be big opportunities and things coming down the line, probably near spring, so while the transition and everything kind of seems almost abrupt, that to embrace, I should embrace it. So the very next day, like, it essentially, I could have kept my job, but I really started thinking about it more and more, and I'm just like, I don't know, like maybe, And I'm taking on a lot of projects now that are honestly more lucrative than my 9 to 5 was. So it was almost like the 9 to 5 was a placeholder and almost getting in the way of a lot of the different opportunities that I have coming down the line. And so I'm just like, I've always, you know, that 9 to 5, like that money's gonna come, that salary, you know. And so with me having my children, I've never been real big on taking those risks. But you know, he was just like, you know, you should embrace it, and it's something that I think, you know, you're going to learn from it. And he was like, you know, opportunities around the corner, and then also new business ventures, which, you know, I am discussing ownership right now in the restaurant that we just opened. And so I'm just like, you know, things are looking up. I have a lot of time to dedicate here along with my other projects. And at the restaurant, we kind of run it, you know, it's more of like an event space, which I was already doing event curation and stuff like that. So with my job being a little bit more conservative, I had to pick and choose the type of events. And so while it was still Black culture and, you know, creating space for Black creatives, I think this is a little bit more organic and a little bit more raw. And
because you can essentially still do the exact same thing.
Exactly. So none of my art like projects fell off. I got calls about more art projects literally today. And so I had the option of working all the way through December. And I really thought about it, and I was just like, from a safety net standpoint, let me go ahead and finish out December. But then as I thought about it, I'm like, you know, I was going to finish out December to try and finish up some projects and put some ends on things. But I'm like, I was doing so much work, there was really no end in the work that I was doing right then. So I'm like, if I stayed on longer, I'm just going to get more attached and have that resentment in walking away. And today I just thought about it. I was like, do I want to put all my energy into ending something, or do I want to use this energy that I have now to start anew, to kind of, you know, so let me decompress for a week, 2 weeks, and then I'm back focused with, you know, pivoting, but still doing and having the same mission that I always had, which is, you know, to break down barriers for people of color in whatever it is I'm doing. So
that is dope. And it's cool because we had Tia's cousin and I, we had a conversation once, or I think it was all three of us, and he basically said too, you know, sometimes we block opportunities because he kind of gave the analogy like, if your hands are full, right? If you have like, I'm gonna say 2 bags in your hand, then when somebody tries to hand you a third bag, you can't because both the hands are already full. So it's like, sometimes you gotta let something go so you can actually accept more. And I was like, yeah, exactly.
And so it's like, I've always, you know, I talk about managing artists, and that's kind of been my side hustle. But now I'm working at the restaurant. People just come in, and I don't know if it's because it's just a Black restaurant or because, you know, Daryl's so well connected in the community, but everybody kind of comes and, you know, reaches out. And so it's a really popular store here, Black-owned store here, that I could possibly be working with in the future. So, you're familiar with Kicking It. But they got some real big stuff, like, under wraps. And they immediately were just like, wait, you did what? Wait, you did what? You brought this festival here? You was here? They was just like, oh, we need you on the team.
Exactly.
And so that was kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't want to marry anybody to a certain extent.
Oh, but that's cool. But in hearing you say that, it was actually still kind of confirmation for the movement that like we're trying to do too. So, oh man, like that's cool. That's actually got me hyped up now. And like, congrats on that, because
thank you, child. I need a congratulations and a prayer.
Oh yeah.
That's why I'm drinking now. I'm just like, am I seriously doing this? And he was like, I'm telling you, it's gonna scare the hell out of you, but it's gonna all make sense come spring. So I'm just like, let me hold tight. Let me get my coins, you know, in place until then. And, you know, let me just surrender that. And so.
Oh yeah. And I talked to Daryl and I was like, man, like, this is going to be the place. And the same thing, I talked to some of the cats at Kicking It too. And I was like, these are two like entities of Austin that are going to just change how people do things. It's going to actually, I think, spark other black people to start, for one, moving to the domain doing things, or moving north doing things. But then, you know, at the same time, people try to, I was about to say go back south, but I'm thinking of Dallas. Dallas south is where more of the black people, but east is here. But that will still spark, you know, that connection between, I guess this is North Austin and the East Austin, and kind of now create a physical and invisible bridge and actually that gap. So, man, that's going to be super dope. Pretty much my day has been kind of the same as yours. I just didn't make that transition yet, but like, that's, man, I've been in my head all day, and I'm just like, something, yeah. I'm not going to speak too much about it because
something's got to shake. But yeah, so yeah, enough about me though. But yeah, you know, when you help out people, you look out for people, they definitely return the love. So you're gonna be
reciprocity.
Yeah, you're gonna be all right, Devin. Whenever you do choose to make that leap, but sometimes I think, you know, sometimes you got to be forced to sometimes, you know, and I'm a prideful person, so it's not like
who you telling?
You know, you don't come back and, oh, you know, I was angry and I said this and that. It's like, nah, once you play with my livelihood, once I know it's you know, it's up for grabs, I'm like, you know, so I'm just like, it ain't as secure as I want it to be anyway, you know, and so like I said, I got mixed feelings about it, but I honestly, this was the first day I wore makeup in like weeks. And so, you know, I went to work today, and I think my boss thought, she's like, oh, you know, I like your makeup. You know, you seem in a better mood. Yeah, I am. Little do you know, so I thought I was going to make it through the full day, but I was just like, no. I said December 31st, but no, it's time. And Daryl be joking with me all the time, but I don't know if you've seen the movie Let Me In.
Yeah.
I love Let Me In. I love vampire movies anyway, period. But he said, a lot of times I notice you deal with people till they give you a way out. He's like, you give people like, but it's like once they do whatever it is they need to do, you take your way out and you never look back. Like I relinquish all control. You got it.
Yeah.
I never look back. I never, you know, reach back. I never need anything from you. But once you open that door, once I see that crack, oh, you let me out.
That's all it takes. It's all it takes. But yeah, like I ain't even going to speak about me because I'd be pretty much telling the same story that you just told, just from a different angle. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. So like I said, we're going to be talking about taboo relationships. Yeah. And for those who don't know, like on Conversations, basically, we want to have these conversations about things that people don't, you know, are afraid to talk about. And at the same time, educate and stimulate people's minds and bridging the gaps. So there's yep. You see
I heard that, the wordplay.
You know I'm a poet, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of different types of relationships that I think people judge all the time and put too much energy thinking negative about. So I made like a little list. There's like homosexual relationships, there's interracial relationships. There's like age gap, you know, where somebody might be 30, 40 years older than somebody. There's like open relationships. There's like polyamorous relationships. Even I've seen where differences in like religions, where the two different people have totally different religions, but they still connect together. But then it even comes to like, I think like body type relationships, like what somebody might be heavier set versus someone skinny or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think, oh my God, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to start. Let's go.
I mean, really it. And then I've even seen, it's not usually as big of a deal, but like kind of job, profession relationships where somebody might be your manager kind of thing, or, you know, conflict of interest kind of thing, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So like, what's your take on all these different things?
I don't know. I mean, let me breeze through them. Let me see that list real quick.
Go ahead, show you a little list right here.
So, I will start with interracial relationships. I know you think I'm going to harp on that for forever, but I really don't give a damn about interracial relationships.
No.
I am one of love who you love, and I didn't used to be.
Right.
So I want to be clear about that. You know, people want to act like once you wake up, once you woke, you know, you act like you was never asleep. But me growing up in Arkansas for some part of my life, it was very segregated. It was white people Arkansas. And it was black people. And I never really saw a black girl dating a white man. That was never the case in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Now, we saw black guys dating white girls all the time, but more often than not, it was usually the white girls that pursued the black guys.
Right.
And we would have kind of harbor that anger because it was usually her rebelling against her dad. You know, so it's like, nigga, like you put your life on the line.
Right.
So
in Arkansas,
she got daddy issues right now, but you know, when she get out of this little phase, she gonna settle down with Trevor, have her 3-4 little blonde haired kids, you know, blue eye, and she never gonna remember you, DeMarcus. Why is she doing this?
Tyrone.
You know. But so I would say in the beginning I saw or felt like I saw that the relationships weren't necessarily out of love and maybe out of like spite and you know, but I would say the first interracial relationship where I actually had some clarity and understood was being in college at Baylor with Robert Griffin III.
She knew the whole name. And
yes, I had class with RG3. And when I tell you, like, when he was, you know, won the Heisman and everything, this dude would come to class. Actually, no, I remember he came to a party. He came to a Kappa party with some pants that were, like, faded. You know, like the jeans, like the black dark wash jeans that would have, like, the dragon flames on them and stuff. But they had been washed, like, 29 times. And so they were really, really faded with these, like, flames going all the way up the pocket. And then he had like just a little white shirt that button down, but it looked like, you know, maybe like a little restaurant shirt.
Oh, I know.
And so I was just like, this is our Heisman Trophy winner in a party with these like faded Goku like Yu-Gi-Oh jeans on. And, you know, and
they're probably Jinkos.
Maybe that's what they were. Maybe they were. I think they were Jinkos. But I just, you know, I realized then that while Robert Griffin, he was checking for the black girls. We were not checking for him. Yeah. You know, he was wearing the braids where his hair was permed, but he was wearing the braids just braided down like little plaits. And that was really the first time where I realized that, you know, some black men and some black women, we may not be attracted to our race for whatever reason. But I also had to understand that, you know, he grew up in a military family. I had a military family. And so we would move around from city to city, but him even more so. I think both of his parents were in the military. And so when you come up as an Army brat, you're moving from city to city. You're in different cultural
and you're seeing
types of settings so much, and a lot of times it's not just black. A lot of times, you know, and so I even had some really close friends there, Samoan, and they had, you know, they grew up in some parts of American Samoa. So you even have like bases in American Samoa where you see these beautiful ass Samoan girls, and you may not ever really be in a black community. And I noticed that he grew up in a lot of different places like that, and so I couldn't knock him for who he was attracted to. And he was attracted to black girls too. Black girls just wasn't attracted to him. And I think it was, you know, you come down to the swag and you know, he too smart, he too articulate, and he didn't have no damn swag. He could have still had all that, because that was like the alphas and the kappas. You know, but RG3 had like his swag was on zero. Like, and every time I saw him, I was like, damn. But I get it. That's exactly why you married Becky. And that's exactly what her name was. It was Becky.
It was for real.
Yeah. So, I mean, like interracial relationships, that's really when I just realized, like, love who you love. But that's just me.
Exactly. And I agree with that, because some people don't take into consideration, like you just said, that it's an environmental thing at times. And two, you might be interested in your own race, but your own race is kind of kicking you to the side. So then you're going to, of course, accept whoever likes you.
That's how they did the kid until I glowed up. I was nerdy as hell. Yeah. And I realized it, like, I was really, really nerdy growing up. Like, I was the teacher's pet. I was, you know.
Right.
I mean, back then, I'm like, I don't care that y'all ain't checking for me, because we like 12. and 16, right. And we got our lives ahead of us. And if I'm like, if you know, I don't know. I realize that a lot of people did peak in high school, and those people are still seeking or living off the validation of high school. And I'm just like, damn, if I had to peak in high school or peak now, of course I'd choose now.
Right,
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that, yeah, like I think that, you know, people are different. And for me, I was nerdy. I was outspoken. Same. I was also competitive. So, nigga, you wasn't gonna be smarter than me. I get out here and I'm gonna play baseball with you. No, I don't like you because you dumb. You know, so it was just like back then, like, yeah, so I get it. Like, you have to, you know, and then, like you said, it is your cultural setting, because the joke in my family was that I was going to marry a white guy. And I'm just like, that's how ghetto my family is. Right. Because I was going to marry a white guy. Right. And then I got to Baylor and everybody was like, you gonna marry a drug dealer. Oh, so I'm like, you know, it just depends on your cultural setting.
Exactly. Because now they're not even necessarily basing it off of you. They're just basing it off the environment that you're in. Exactly. And I've known a lot of different, it wasn't actually until I moved to this little town called Wiley, which is north of Dallas, way north. And that's when I really started seeing the most like interracial couples, even though Wiley was still kind of like it's blown up a little bit more now, but like it's still predominantly white. But to see, like, you know, I think that was one of the first times I really noticed, like, our neighbor, he was listening to Bone, and at the time I actually thought he was playing it because he see us black people walking by and shit, like, oh, let me play some of their music so it'll be, but like, no, like, this fool actually, that's what he likes to listen to. And then like when I went to the high school there, granted, it wasn't a lot of black people, but some of the black people were dating, like, say, white girls. And so I'm like, you know, I had my face turned up and shit. But after being there for a while and then just kind of, like, looking at the situation and, like, I'm like, okay, y'all still together. And then, like, you know, seeing people outside of that. And I was like, okay, like, who am I to judge, basically, if you're actually happy in your relationship? So, but then, like you saying, like, with the dude, he was nerdy. And, like, you say you were nerdy, too. And I know I was, too. But then it's like, we as black people, we be like, oh, they always trying to date this person, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you stick with your own? But then, you know, we sit there and judge our own. So it's like, what do you expect? You didn't want to date them. Oh, but you want them to date their own, but you don't want to date them. So it's like, how does that work? And then two, excuse me. I forgot what I was going to say. But anyways, but yeah, like we sit here and kick on to the side, but then we expect them to do different. So it's like, it don't work that way.
Exactly. And I think, I think it comes down to love who you love. While I do still have some issues, I do have issues as it relates to interracial relationships. If a person says they only date
yes, exactly what I was going to say.
And I even say that for black people. I knew that I would probably settle down with a black guy, but it depended on what phase you met me in my life. Right. Because in high school, you could not tell me I wasn't gonna marry no curly haired Jew and had little nappy head kids with big noses. And like, I wanted to marry a Jew. Like, I was in the Jew crew. You know, I loved Jewish men. I loved their curly hair. I loved their features because they were like black, but they weren't.
They weren't.
You know, and so I had a thing for Jews for a long time. So, I would say between like 9th and 11th grade, I thought I would marry a Jew. Then I went, on to college, and I started studying sociology and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's going to help change your mind a lot.
It did change my mind. It did open my mind to other races. So then at that time, I dated a guy. He was Guatemalan, and then I also dated a Dominican.
I remember you saying somebody from DR.
Yeah, I dated a Dominican from Washington Heights, and it's crazy to me because people always talk about Dominicans and their cultural issues. They like to bring up Cardi B and stuff, but when I tell you his name, we called him E, but his name was Emmanuel. His mom didn't speak hardly any English, but E taught me so much about being black, more than any black person had ever taught me. He told me, just the history of like Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and he talked about how Dominican people were black people. Basically. And so I didn't, hear that from any other brown race. Right. But he was pro-black, even being Dominican, and that was really when I just understood and started studying, along with just my studies at school, just the African diaspora and things like that, and that cultural influence and how that permeated in all these different cultures and how it, you know, essentially influenced all these cultures around the world.
Right.
But yeah, that was really when I realized. And even then, I don't know, I still got a thing for Dominicans, because when I tell you that man would, when he was mad, he would clean. When he was happy, he would clean. He's frustrated, he was cleaning. And when he would sweat, like, he still smelled like honey and cocoa butter. Like never, he never like never smelled. I was just like, how does he do this? But no, yeah, that was really when I became like open to interracial relationships. And I did.
He's on the truth.
Yeah, I slept with one white guy. One white guy, like literally one time. Like, I couldn't even do a round two. Like, my ancestors, I think they would just like beat me upside the head or something. But I really I couldn't say that I didn't like something until I tried it. And you know, shout out to my white people, the white allies and everything, but I doubt that I'd ever do it again. And I really remember going home and showering and like scrubbing myself because I mean, he didn't smell like hot dog water. He didn't. But to me, they do smell like wet puppies. Sorry. They do. All right, Devin, I'm done.
JK.
Just kidding. I kid.
JK. But you know what? It's funny. When you
all right, it wasn't hot dog water, but it was Vienna sausages. Okay.
You know, when we had that much money, we used to eat a whole bunch of Vienna sausages. But anyways,
I couldn't get past the smell. That's why the whole
you had to drain the can. And then, like, the whole process to it. And then had to let it sit for a little bit. But anyways.
Oh, shit, man.
But you said it, like, when you said, my biggest issue with, like, interracial couples is when somebody says they don't date their own. So now I get, like, you might prefer another race. I'm perfectly fine with that. But the fact when you don't date your own, to me, means that you don't like your own, which means you don't like yourself.
Right.
So it's like, how do you expect to really love somebody else if you can't even love yourself? Now, I get it. Like, I've had actually a couple of different friends who are white who only would date black people because they just didn't like their own people's history and stuff, which I get it. But I still had an issue with you not
right,
dating your own.
That's still a part of you.
Right. So I'm like, I get it, but like, I don't agree with it. Now, it's one thing, like, again, like I said, if you prefer a different race, cool, but don't not date your own because of that, because to me, you're being just as bad as whoever you're running from at that point, because you still don't like your own people. But I've had a lot of friends that in interracial relationships that are still together now, and I'm like, you know, it can work. Me personally, I love black women, so that's just kind of what that is. Now,
I love black men, but let me tell you, I got a lot of Dominican lingo now.
I mean, that's black though.
You're right, that is black.
So I did, and hopefully they might hear this. I don't know. A long time ago, I dated a girl who is half black and white, and my biggest issue, she can probably hear this. I don't know. I'm sorry. I do apologize. But my biggest issue was actually because of her white side. And it wasn't so much because I had an issue with white people, so to say. There's going to be a time where it's going to be like a whole social issue where, you know, it's going to some stuff. The person I was then is different than I am now, but like I really couldn't deal with a lot of white people then. So it's like knowing, yeah, she more embraced her black side, but knowing that your other side is still white was actually hard for me to deal with. As far as in dating, I have a cousin who's half black and white and no issues. Like, you know, I love his mom, who's married to my uncle. So like no issues there. But like I had an issue just with dating the half white girl because like I know stuff that I say. I'm not saying I say stuff racist, but like for one, our families aren't going to be able to get together.
Really? Yeah.
So it was like that was going to be a thing.
Really?
Her family and my family,
okay.
Her white side of her family and my black family. That wasn't going to connect because of the background of her white side of her family. Not, again, I don't really know the full background, but like just knowing her mom, like I just know like our family weren't going to be able to be in the same space because sometimes we are loose-tongued people.
Right,
and so we're going to say, and it was like at the time I was like, I don't know if I'd ever defend, you know what I'm saying, if
I never thought about that. Like, that is a really interesting, like a really good point. If you are in an interracial relationship, how do you defend your partner with your family?
Right.
You know, no, that's a really good point.
But see, now me, like, again, I always say, like, it's not a matter if I would date them, it's if they would date me, because I'm not going to change who I am. I am going to talk about certain things that white people do, which is fact. I'm not, again, saying it out in a racist kind of way, like, you know, white people's history does this and this or whatever. So I am going to say those things. So if it's like, if she couldn't embrace me being that and like me trying to, you know, better my own people and uplift black people, then like said those things are going to be issues. So it's like I never want to come across that thing, you know, come across that way, because I'm going to be that person regardless.
I also, now that you brought that up, I know it's probably off topic, but I don't like how white women are allowed, I would say, to be more free and fluid sexually than black women are. I think black women a lot of times are more policed, and I'll give you a perfect example, because, you know, we talk about it and everything. No, I have, you know, biracial cousins on both sides of my family. On my dad's side of the family, I have two cousins, a boy and a girl. Well, I say them like they're my younger cousins, but we all grown now. And then on my mom's side of the family, I have three cousins. Actually, I have, I think, more like 5 cousins who are Latino and black. And so on my dad's side of the family, I remember, like, there were, you know, I had 2 cousins. They were younger than me, and they essentially were conceived with my dad's brother, my uncle.
Okay.
Now, as I got older, then I realized the joke of the family was that my dad used to fuck with her. You know, so my dad, like, she was like my dad's girlfriend first.
Okay.
And then, you know, my dad was just like, you know, going through whatever. Because at the time, they were really young. So probably, I think my dad was like a junior or senior in high school when he dated her. And then, you know, he stopped dating her. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later, she got with my dad's brother and then had kids. And like, it was not we didn't learn about it until maybe 20 years later.
Yeah, right.
You know, but I'm like, had that been a black woman, you know, you would have been the whole of the family for the rest of. But, you know, I've noticed that even in like movies and stuff, white people talk about hooking up, which is essentially synonymous with fucking, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, I hooked up with him and I hooked up with, but, you know, it's just like, oh, you know, we were drunk, ha, 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 you know, but with black women, it's like, girl, you a hoe. You know, and have you noticed that? Like, it's just a subtle difference. But I often think about that. But in that situation, the way it was with my cousins, in the beginning when they were first born, they split, like, with their white family and us 50-50. So we had to alternate Thanksgivings and Christmases and stuff. But as that sun in Arkansas started shining a little bit, you know, and they skin got a little bit more melanin, I would say probably around, like, because they are a year apart. So I would say when they were about 11 and 12, like 13, at that point, their white family stopped getting them for Christmases, and just
because they're too brown.
Yeah, and totally, like, they lost all contact with them. And then I would say years later, they kind of tried, but my little cousin, the male, he was just like, nah, like, you just left us. Like, it was my black side that took me in. Like, he was getting us for Christmases and stuff. You buying us gifts, then you just stopped calling. You stopped picking us up as kids, you know? And so when they did try and reach back out, he wasn't interested. And so I've always wondered how, you know, people feel being like the result of a, you know, interracial relationship. And I have found that most of the people I know who are of, you know, biracial heritage, I feel like we all are to a certain extent, but I noticed they would be the ones who would be more involved in history and race relations,
right? Because they're trying
to reconcile that those opposing and polarizing views, and so that's an inner turmoil. If you know how black and white communities are, you are literally half and half of that. How do you make sense of that? You know?
I mean, that sounds like another podcast, wasn't it?
I know, we always do
I
that.
know.
We didn't even get to the other stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get to those now.
Let's do it.
So, like I said, that's like I said, really about interracial. and it's crazy because you said about the Jewish guy. I had two friends who got married, and I think her family was more Jewish and his family was Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they did their weddings, it was cool. Both families got together, and even after the ceremony, you know, I could see both families interacting. It was like no issue, but it's like people have to go into that with an open mind.
Right.
But what they did to kind of, I guess, be in support of both sides of their families, they did I can't remember exactly, but they basically took two different kinds of traditions from both sides
Mm-hmm.
and kind of fused it into their ceremony. That way, neither family felt some kind of way, but yet
Right.
they still did it how they wanted to do it because they're artists, so they did it creatively. So it's like they didn't have to break out of who they
Mm-hmm.
were, but then they didn't have to, you know, go out of the way too much
Right.
for their families. And then the crazy thing about that, they're also interracial.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like the combination of a black and a white lady, a black guy and a white girl, and white family, Jewish, black, Christian. So you have like two different dynamics that
Mm-hmm.
they're putting together. So it was really cool to see
Mm-hmm.
that. But it's like people have to be more open-minded. But I do see, it looks like these days people are becoming more open-minded about these kind of relationships, as far as when it comes to like religious and interracial relationships, even with age gap. My only issue with that is the maturity level, because I've spoke to people, you know, from different countries. You know, here in America we're like 18, you know, it's this level, then 21, and then, you know, whatever. But like in other countries, 16 is like, you know, that's the age of, you know, where you're an adult or whatever, you start moving forward. So it's like I can't, you know, it comes down to what I'm used to here in the States, where like if somebody's like, oh, this 16-year-old married a 20, I'm like, oh shit, that's fucking crazy. But then when you think about it, like you talk to the 16-year-old girl, it's like, oh, she's really mature, and this 21-year-old guy, like, you know what I mean? There's nothing weird with it in that particular situation.
Yeah, and I would say 16, 21. I don't know. I feel my way about it.
Yeah.
But I can't really say too much. You know, I feel if it's a legal age in the country,
Exactly.
that's what I'm cool with. But I mean, in Texas, you know, in some places, I think in the U.S. legal age is 16.
Yeah,
some
but they
places
have
it's
to have it
17 and 18.
some kind of parent mandated thing or something, like that whole R. Kelly relationship.
I dated when I was 17. I dated someone who was 27, and he was cool. I just remember him being real fine. He was real fine. But it was weird. Like the whole exchange, the whole situation was weird to me, because I remember him approaching me in the mall. He approached me in the mall, and I was with my parents, but my parents had just like walked away or something.
Okay.
And I'm just in Journeys probably looking for some Chucks, because that was pretty much all I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for some shoes, and he approached me, and I was just like, oh, he fine. Why he talking to me? And so he asked me for my number, and I remember my dad walked up while I'm getting his number, and I'm like, oh, hell, my daddy finna act a fool. And so, you know, I told my mom and my dad I got his number or whatever. And then I remember my parents inviting him over for dinner. And so he came over and he ate. And then I just remember him being real cool. But then I remember my parents went out of town. And I snuck him in my house. And I'm 17 and he's 27. And, you know, I would say that was probably the relationship, whatever the situation was, it was very brief, because after a while I was like, nigga, you 27.
You're right.
I ain't even finished high school. You mad weird. I don't care how fine you are. You mad fucking weird, yo. And like, it was nothing that really tipped me off that made me. And so I also wonder why my parents allowed me, but they knew me. They would always joke about me just going through phases, even as a young kid. So I guess they were just like, let's let her get this out of the system. But I mean, he probably lasted all about maybe 6 weeks until I realized, what's wrong with you? I'm 17. I ain't got shit. I ain't got no job. I ain't got nothing. All I got is high school. I got high school problems. What you want with my high school ass? So it was really me that broke it off, and all my friends was like, you broke it off with a my girl. He fine, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but he 27. That's 3 years from 30. Gross.
Right.
And here I am, almost 30.
Right. I ain't old, motherfucker.
Okay.
But like those age gaps, to me, it's a generational thing too. Because I even talked to, like, when I talked to even people 10 years younger than me, it's like, when you think about it, it's like, oh, 10 years ain't that bad. I'm 33, so what is that, 23? So I'm like, well, whatever, it ain't that big. But then when, like, you have certain conversations, it's like, oh, you don't know about this? You don't know about this?
Exactly.
And the crazy thing is, somebody 10 years older than me, it's not a lot they can say that I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's just, I don't know. It's like in certain time periods, it's like certain groups, it's like,
I agree.
Totally different.
Yeah, and I don't know. So I think that was the oldest I had ever dated. Other than that, it's always been like 2 to 3 years. And now, since, I guess we didn't get to this topic just yet. But now with my open relationship or whatever, one of the people, he's 4 years older than me. Yeah, 4 years. And so that's probably the largest gap that I've had in a while, because me and Slim, we're just like months apart.
Oh, okay.
But I also do see the difference in maturity too, just a different thing. But I've always been told that I've been mature. And so I think that's why I could keep up with the 27-year-old. But I was also mature enough to say, nah, I don't want to, or I shouldn't have to keep up this much. Like, there should be not a childhood, or there should be this growth that I'm allowed to have and experience. And you're not about to settle me down with your old 30-year-old ass, and I ain't even got, I'm just out in, and so that was something that I realized. But I don't, I heard, Robert De Niro's getting a divorce. And, I always had a thing for Robert De Niro. So,
But to me, it's like when you hit certain age brackets, then the age gap
kind of levels out.
And it, to me, becomes less of a concern. You know what I mean? Because, like, if you're 18, you finish high school or whatever. Yeah, you're technically an adult. I get it. I say even maybe 10 years older than 18, maybe. But it still comes down to the maturity level. Because even when I was 16... I remember being at like Bob Marley Festival or something in Dallas, and I had a little, facial hair, and I was talking to some adult. I don't remember how old he was, but I remember like me and him would have some kind of conversation, but I know he knew I was younger than him, but he didn't know that I was a kid. So he was like, something we were talking about, like music. I don't know what we were talking about, but he was saying, and see, you got all these kids out here running around. But I'm like thinking, I'm only probably a year or 2 years older than them. But because like I've always been around like adults and older people, I was having this conversation with this older guy, and he couldn't have told, he couldn't gauge my age. So it's like, so I know the oldest I think I've dated, I was like 19, I think. Was it 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, so maybe 5 years. Okay. And at the time, that particular lady, she didn't know I was 19. So like, I'm having conversations like, cause I'm mature and all this, and then when she kind of found out my age, it was pretty much, she was already attracted to me at that point. So it was like, well, too late. And Tia was kind of the same way too.
Really?
Tia is 3 years older than me. And the same thing.
3 years older than you? I didn't know that.
So same thing. It was like by the time you already figured out what my age is, it's like, because like I said, I'm very mature. Yeah.
Look at that. Can't gauge my age. That might be the episode today. What else? Oh, and we talked about homosexual relationships, which I don't know. I think it's weird to me to even categorize them. But if we have to do interracial relationships, I guess, there has to be some type of definition or whatever. But it's still the same as it is with interracial relationships. Is love who you love. If I got a gauge on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably have more issues with interracial relationships than homosexual relationships. But either way, my not giving a fuck is pretty like high. I don't care. Either way.
I've gotten debates with people and they're like, well, it's just not right. But I'm like, okay, let's talk about what's right and what's wrong.
Okay.
So it's like, who am I, again, like I said, who am I to judge who somebody's happy? For one, if there was two people, whether they're same sex or different, and they say that's weird, not right, but is it not weird or not right for me to be caring about what they fucking doing in their bedroom?
Exactly.
Is that not weird? That's not strange?
It's so odd. I'm just like, if I'm concerned with it, there is a level of interest. There is a care that has to be involved in that.
Right.
You know, and I just think for me, like, I don't like, what I will say is I don't like how people create or make the LGBTQIA rights the same as a civil rights issue.
Oh yeah, no,
I don't think
those are different.
I think they're very different. I understand that there are some similarities in them, but I think they're very different. I have dated women before, not alone. I just can't do a woman by myself. It's just not my thing. But I have been with women before, and if I walk out of my house, you could not tell that I have been with a woman before. Right. I can walk out my house and you will know that I'm black. Exactly. I can never walk out my house and say today I will not be with her. I will not be black today. And so I think that, that is a real civil rights issue in something that I cannot change, something I cannot hide, something that is observed in me before I speak up or anything, any of my demeanor or anything, So I think that's my one issue when we talk about the rights as it relates to that. But, with divorce rates as high as they are in heterosexual relationships, I don't give a damn about who you love. With all these damn mass shootings and shit, I don't, when can you tell me, has there been a trans person, a gay man, a gay woman, busting in these churches shooting, even though they've been condemned, like they've been the devil all their life, on the tops of these damn towers shooting, busting in these in these schools, in these churches. It's not gay people. So if we gonna focus on some things to care about, I think that's where more of my energy will go. And I just think that if we talk about United States being founded upon separation of church and state, we should not be discussing homosexuality at all. No. I don't think it should be a topic, because what you're telling me is that we still taking this shit up to the Supreme Court, which means that the tax dollars that I don't even agree with paying with are going with issues that I think are null and void. When they got way more we're not focusing topics on gun rights. We're not focusing on the education gaps, the wealth gaps. I don't give a damn about a man liking another man or a woman liking 5 other women.
And it's crazy how long it took for the gay marriage to actually get passed. I heard a comedian say, he was like why? Because basically he was saying, like, a lot of hetero people are miserable in their marriage, so who am I to not allow them to be miserable too? You know what I mean? I was like, I get what he's saying. I said I'm miserable in my marriage. I'm not. But like, but yeah, like, if they want to get married, first of all, if they're already dating and they've been dating for 50 years, what's the difference? So let them sign a piece of paper and be married. Like, it's not gonna, like, when a gay couple gets married, it's not like it's gonna spread the gay. Like, what are you afraid of? You know what I mean?
Exactly. I just that's my issue. And I have gay friends. So and hell, I mean, on the right night, I'm probably gay. I never know. I think everyone is along the spectrum in some way. I don't really have the conversation with men because they be getting uptight. But I think that everybody's gay in some way. Like, not just everybody but I think that we have all, there is no end all be all. We act like it is it's not along a spectrum. And I often have the conversation with my friends, and they know I love me what they call a manly man, but I've been asked before if I could date a bisexual man, and I think so. Like, I probably have, knowing my escapades in Atlanta from time to time. So I wouldn't be surprised if I slipped one in. No pun intended.
Right.
But no, for real though. Like, I don't even have a problem with that. I think I could date a bisexual man, but that's more of I can respect a person and who they are. Like, if you can be who the fuck you are, like, regardless of who is around, no one can shake your foundation. I always respect that. But I think, if you don't, I'd rather be with the man who was curious about a man, being with the man and was just like, nah, that's not my thing, as opposed to being with the man who's always in the back of his mind like, I don't know. Like, you know, one time in gym, I wanted to go there, but I didn't. You know, I'm just like, no, like, at least, like, I get
what you're saying. They ain't never been me, just FYI. But I get what you're saying. Exactly. Because, you know, I don't always ask people. I was about to straight up lie. But I was thinking about, like people that are super homophobic. But then, like, you're so super homophobic, but then I've heard those same homophobic dudes, like you mentioned the locker room, like who played football and stuff, and they'll mention little stuff that they did, like, man, this nigga dick was blah blah blah. Oh, you little dickhead. Oh, we all laughing at this little dickhead.
I found out about the biggest dicks from other niggas.
But see, you know what I mean? But like, I'm
in
like,
high school, I'm like, he got gay? What? It go around his waist? What?
See,
what?
And to me, that's gay.
And it was, but I mean, I'm like, but these were the most masculine.
You know what I mean?
These are the varsity football players, lettered all 4 years, basketball, soccer, all of this, and they in there like, man, blah blah blah, slap me with his meat. I'm like, y'all.
Right, but you know they say it's a lot of like said, a lot of athletes say a lot of stuff like that, but I'm like that's not gay at all. Yeah. But then to me, if you're homophobic, you don't want to see lesbians either. Really? So you got a lot of guys. No, I mean by definition, homophobic means I hate gays, right? So you got a lot of guys who like, oh, I want to see these two chicks kiss. You want to see those two dudes kiss? No, that nigga, that's gay. But they gay too. Yeah. No, they lesbians. It's part of the same spectrum, bro. Yeah. And if you want to see them, you want to see them. Yeah. Or if you have an issue with one, you need to have it all the way across. So you can't.
I agree.
Pick and choose.
Yeah, I don't like when guys be homophobic and then they're like, oh, but I want to see girl on girl. Nigga, no.
Or check this out, though.
You don't get to capitalize on the movement.
Check this out. I know I'm trying to move on. So if guys who be like, yeah, man, you know, me and my homie ran a train or had a threesome with a chick. So 2 dudes and 1 chick, right? Were y'all fucking her at separate times? Or were y'all both in her at the same time? If y'all both in her at the same, I'm sorry, people, this might be getting a little vulgar, but if you're in her at the same time, where's the proximity of y'all dicks?
Very true.
First of all, I ain't never been in no situation where I had to have my dick out in front of no other dude. We have been to a spa before where, you know, everybody, you know, whatever. So, and that's just the environment of it. And it
y'all were at a naked spa?
In Dallas, there's King Spa and Castle Spa. So
I heard of King Spa.
But anyways, like, I mean, they got new beaches
they
and stuff
new
here.
Bitches too.
Right? But you know what I mean? It's like, it comes down to that mentality. But like, say if you're going to be homophobic, but y'all want to sleep with one lady, then for one.
No, I
you know what I mean?
Agree. I've always wondered that. And then my thing, I remember growing up and we would talk about being gay and all the football players would slap each other on the ass.
You know, stuff like that.
That's like,
that's what the gay men do.
How do you define what is that boundary? And that's why I'm like, you gay. And not in that way, like, not that it bothers me, but I'm like, you can't say they gay and you not gay.
Right.
You know, and I don't know. But yeah, I have no problem with homosexual relationships. They seem to be, for the most part, I'd say they're on the end of the spectrum. They tend to be, the ones I have gotten to witness tend to be very, very amicable, so they get along really, really well, or they be crazy as fuck.
I mean, but just like anybody else, though.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, for the most, it's never an in between. It's like we got our ups and downs. It's either they gay best friends that just decided to date, which I feel like if I ended up being gay, that's really what it would be. It'd be like, girl, you know we love niggas, but these niggas ain't shit. So me and you, we gonna stick together. We might, you know, mess around every now and then. Probably not. We might throw a man in the mix because I just can't. But girl, if I gotta be loyal to somebody, I'm gonna be loyal to my bitch. I ain't gonna be loyal to these niggas out here. You know, so I don't know. But yeah, I believe as far as like homosexual relationships, man, love who you love.
Right.
Yeah. Be you. Do you.
Yeah, he could do you too.
I know. I was gonna say that, but I was like, it depends. What else were we talking about? Oh, we open relationships, infamous open relationships.
And see, and that kind of falls with like polyamorous. Even though I believe, I don't know, I ain't no expert, but I believe they're technically different, but similar spectrums. But I know, like me personally, I couldn't do an open relationship only because I'm not a jealous person. And I'm not even gonna say like I own my wife and stuff like that, but like I think I mentioned this before. I'm real private and secretive, so it's like, and I don't I don't like having a whole bunch of personalities in the same space at the same time sometimes. And like, then, you know, I'm real analytical. So it's like, I got all these different factors that's just going to be a problem for me in a relationship like that. So for me personally, it wouldn't work. Again, I'm not knocking those who can or who will or who do, because I do have some friends that are in open relationships as well as we have some poly friends too. And they're both the coolest shit people. I mean, we got gay friends too, so like for the most part, no one looks different. You know, everybody's just again, it goes back to like, if you have an issue with that, why are you so focused in somebody else's bedroom like that?
Exactly. And that has really been my issue with us having an open relationship. Women be like, oh, I would never share my man. Girl, did I ask you to?
But even that word share,
and it's like, it's possessive. Yeah. It's ownership. When this person when he came out of his mom's vagina, was he already betrothed to you?
Right.
Did he know at 2 weeks old, 2 days old, he already had a wife waiting on him? He just got to go through life and his wife already there.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you don't own these people. These people have their own thoughts, their own goals, their own motivations, and you can't control those feelings and those thoughts. And I think that's what love has become so much now. It's become possessive, and we love out of obligation and ownership.
Right.
And I think that's not necessarily. That's why we had our open relationship. Again, it was my idea, and I'm just like, man, I love my boyfriend. I still do. But I'm like, you grew up in a very sheltered household to where I don't think you've ever gotten to figure out who you are. Right. Like my parents at a young age, they just let me be me. It was Kiara be on this crazy shit sometimes. She probably gonna bring a white man home, and then it's, oh, she's bringing a couple home for dinner, and then it's, oh, she's bringing a Dominican home for dinner, and then it's, oh, now she got a little hood nigga, and then it's, oh, this man comes from a nice family. You know, and every time my family, you want to eat, you ready to, like, you know. And so I think in them allowing me to be me, I got to figure out who I was. And so I think a lot of times in those religious households and things like that, you are restricting, you are choking the life out of those children sometimes.
Which actually causes them to do more than you wanted them to do, because now it's like,
you've created
so
this thirst for them, this thirst for whatever that you've kept from them. And I think for me, I was, I think, a junior or senior when I lost my virginity. I know I was the last one out of my group of friends. And the whole joke, and I really lost my virginity due to peer pressure, because everybody was like, oh, Kiara gonna be the guys joke that I was gonna be the only virgin in high school. I'm like, fuck that, nigga. I can get some dick if I want to. I just don't want to. And so then I did, and I was just like, this is what y'all hoes be crazy over?
And know what the double standard with that is? So it's like people pressure you to do it, but then you become a hoe. So it's like, you need to do it. Oh, you only done it once? Okay, so then where's the threshold before you're a hoe?
Exactly. And so I'm like, damn, like what really threw me off, I'm like, y'all been fucking, and y'all make it seem like this shit's been live, and my shit wasn't. Maybe that first time was a fluke. So I'm like, well, let me try this. Let me try this. And I'm like, nah, this still ain't living up to the hype that y'all bitches be coming back to.
Right.
And then I just realized that men honestly couldn't really have sex in high school. I mean, why would we expect them to? They were more concerned with their own gratification, which I get, you know, but it's like, damn, like we really made it seem like it was something. And I remember being in high school, and the joke from everybody was like, man, he too good, she class president, she nerdy, she goofy. I'm like, niggas be throwing dick at me, I just don't want, you know. So I'm like, fuck y'all, I'm gonna prove a point.
I tossed the dick back.
And then, you know, I did it, and I was just like, oh, this is horrible. So now I got some catching up to do. And then in the catching up process, I was just like, nah, this shit kind of whack, yo. And then I got to college, and everybody, you know, I went to Baylor. Everybody's extremely religious. So I got there, and everybody was a virgin. And so I'm just like, y'all, hold me. There were still virgins out here. There were still attractive, beautiful, smart virgins, and y'all really just shitted on me, like, because I wasn't interested in sex.
A lot of probably the ones who were pressuring you was still virgins, or they might have got like head or something like that, but that's not technically
and I remember
intercourse. So
and then I also was traumatized. I remember I asked my friends in middle school, like in 8th grade, I asked my homeboy what did sex feel like to him, and this dumbass told me it's like sticking your hand in a bowl of warm macaroni. And I was just like, okay. Then my other homeboy, because I used to hang out with guys, he was like, man, I don't like black vagina because it looked like roast beef. And so after that, like for the rest of my life, I was like, if a nigga ever say my vagina look like roast beef, I will kill him. So I think that could have led to some of
a little bit.
That nigga really said roast beef, and I don't think that people our age eat roast beef. So I immediately thought of a fucking Arby's sandwich, because I'm nobody eats Arby's, but I always see these roast beef sandwiches from Arby's, and they're not appealing.
I don't know how Arby's stay open. I swear all of it's a drug front, because
it is a drug front.
I never see a bunch of cars outside of Arby's.
It's a drug front.
It has to be.
How are they? And like they got placed like everywhere. I ain't never seen, even during a lunch rush. During a lunch rush, Arby's don't have more than 2 cars out there.
Nope.
You know what it is? Come on.
It has to be.
But yeah, as far as like the open relationships, people, I don't know. With me and Slim, it's weird because people see our relationship and they're like, oh my God, I want your relationship. I want your relationship. I envy y'all. And I'm like, man, we crazy as hell.
And that's the thing. I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation about open and poly relationships. So like for people who are judging or trying to get into it, like just do your research, read, talk to people. Because like I said, before we met our poly friends, my perception was really just like, remember they had this whole like polygamy movement thing? Yeah. So I'm picturing like white people, Little House on the Prairie looking white people kind of stuff, cultish, because that's how the media spun a lot of that. But then when you actually talk to people, it's like, oh, it's not cultish at all. It's deeper than that.
It really is. And I think with us, like we were chilling. And polygamy is the practice or custom of having more than one wife or husband at the same time. So I think the difference with us is that, the difference with us is that we talked about once we got married, we probably, if we were to get married, we would not do a poly relationship. We wouldn't do open to the extent that we're open now. But I think also we have to define what is open, because everybody likes to say certain things about a relationship, and open is whatever a relationship period is what you define it with that partner.
Right, exactly.
So even if it's not open per se, it's still your agreement is your agreement.
Right.
With one partner, she might not like you to like anybody's damn Instagram or photos or anything.
And that might be in you and your partner's agreement.
And that might be y'all understanding. Other times it's like, oh, I like to watch porn, and she might not care about him liking porn.
Right.
Other women may not know you should not, so whatever that is. So for us, open was we were always open to what the other person needed. And so it was just like in the beginning, I felt like he was sheltered. He didn't know who he was. I'm like, I love you enough to be my life partner.
Yeah.
But we ain't ready just yet. We got some figuring out to do. I love you enough to give you this space to grow while I grow with you. While I watch you bloom, and I can help that, I can nurture that, but I'm not trying to make you somebody you're not. I'm not trying to make you who I need you to be, because that's what you've been in every relationship. That's what you were growing up.
Right,
you were whatever your parents needed you to be. Then you moved on to these serial monogamous to where you're whoever that girl needs you to be.
Right.
Then you move on. So when do you finally figure out between all these 2 to 3 year relationships on top of the 18 relationships you had in a sheltered household, nigga, you think we finna be together 10 years and you gonna wake up? I figured out who I am today, and this shit I ain't cool with. So let me pack my bags. Nah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we take these vows, it is till death do we part. So I'm like, get all that shit out now. We young, we got life ahead of us, so.
Like you're saying, with any good relationship, there's that agreement, whether it's actually just written in stone or actually verbally said, but like there's that agreement. Like even with you and your homies or homegirls or whatever, there's a relationship or there's that agreement. Same thing like with a business relationship, there's an agreement. So, like I said, with an intimate relationship like that, I see it's the same. And it's cool that you said you're open to helping him be who he is and whatnot. And that's a cool ass agreement.
But he helping me be who I am too.
Right.
And it's like, every time I get with a man in the past, it's like they be in love like the first month. And it be like an annoying, weird love. And it's weird because all my family, it's like the joke. They just be like, what you be doing to these niggas? And I'm like, I don't know, man. But they be head over heels in love. And then they get really weird to where it's controlling. And it's like they want to change me. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, if I become the person that you wanted me to be, then I ain't the person you was attracted to. So it's like they want to get you to mold you and then not like you.
Right.
So I'm like, what the hell is wrong with that? And with Slim is always he always says, my one little my one little bit of feedback is, your fuse could be short, could be longer at times. But other than that, he doesn't necessarily try to change me, or a woman does this, or a woman, nah.
And see, Tia said that about when we got together. That's what she loved about me so much. I never try to change who she is, and like never judge her for her past, present, and future. When I got with Tia, she was considered what people might say heavier set. Honestly, I didn't see that. And then, of course, I look at previous pictures, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're bigger than you are now. But like, when I got with Tia, she was, again, I'm saying quote unquote, people can't see my air quotes, but I'm saying she was heavier set according to other people's definition. But like, I didn't care. You know what I mean? I was like thick chicks. She thick now. Still, that's what I love.
Fine though. Tia real fine.
That's 12 years. 12 years. Me and Tia.
Shout out to Tia. And you, for real though. Congratulations.
But like I said, I've seen her whole transition from, like I said, her size when she was bigger to now, and like I've loved her ever since. So it's like, again, it kind of goes back to what we said, like, who am I to judge somebody else's relationship? Because I've seen people, I'm like, from initial, I'm like, oh, why are they together? But then I have to, reflect upon myself, like, why am I judging these people?
Exactly, and I have to catch myself too. And I know it's weird because people do that with me and Slim all the time. Because for one, I'm loud, I'm boisterous, and Slim in the cut. Slim be deep in the cut. Slim can be in the room and you not know Slim in the room. But also when he want to be seen, like, I love that so much about him. Like, he gives me my space to be me. And we joke about it, like, I'm really the kite and he my little stream. Because if you don't hold me, I'm all over the place. And he's my anchor. He like holds me down in that regard. But no, I'm a big girl. And when I got with Slim, I was just like, he's bigger now. I mean, he's still slim, but he was real slim when I got with him. And I remember joking with him, and I was like, why you like fat girls? Because all the girls he liked were like way bigger than me. And then I thought about it, and I was just like, well, if we're thinking about this on down the line, I can always lose weight. And I mean, if I get finer, I'm pretty sure he'd appreciate me finer as much as he does fat. But if I get fatter, I'm still in the clear, because he like fat girls. And I really like, in the beginning, it was like a self-conscious thing for me. And I think just even now, because like Slim is attractive, he's slim, he's tall, and then I'm short and wide. And so I'm like, but I always find like even he's more of
How did you dress? If you said you were fat, quote unquote.
I don't know. I mean, I've always dressed comfortably. I wasn't like a girl that just like was all over the top.
I didn't. To me, fat is in the state of mind.
But I've always been confident with my body.
And see, I think that's the difference to me for what a fat girl or fat guy is versus not. I guess, because to me, fat is, quote unquote, this fat person and this other person that I don't consider fat could be the same size, body shape, everything, identical body wise. But the one on the left over here is fat because they come looking sloppy. You do them fat people shit. You know what I mean? You do what people, when people say the word fat, you do all of that stuff. Whereas with somebody else, they dress, I ain't gonna say appropriately, but they dress, in clothes that complement them.
Right.
You know,
so I think
confidence.
I think you're right. It goes back to self-esteem. But no, you're absolutely right, because I would always would tell Slim my weight and he wouldn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nigga, do you want me to step on this scale? And
Right.
he's like, no, because this person this size. I'm like, you see me every day.
Right.
You see me with clothes on, with clothes off.
Yeah.
And he would just be like, no, you're not fat. And I'm like, oh, I want to slap him, because I'm like, you lying. I am fat. It's
Right,
okay.
exactly.
And so recently we had this joke, because I was like, nah, I'm a BBW. And he was like, nah, girl, you a LCW. I was like, what is an LCW? Yeah. He talking about a little chubby woman. I was like, fuck you. I want to be a BBW. But I've always been a Finch straddler, and I think I've always hated that. Like, I'm not light skin, but I ain't dark skin either.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the sun, you know, in the winter, I get real pale. Mm-hmm. But then come summer, I'm a real brown skin. And then it's like, I'm not fat, but I'm not small.
Right, yeah.
So I'm just like, can I just be
so
a fat girl or a skinny girl?
We're going to cut out the word fat. So you're not fat. Now you might be heavier than you want. You might be bigger than this other lady.
I gotta own it.
There you go.
I
own
gotta
that LCW.
own this little chubby woman.
Own that LCW.
He a hoe for coming. Why can't I just be a great BBW? This nigga talking about
do you want to be a BBW because that name holds more weight than LCW?
LCW, I haven't heard it.
He came up. You an artist. He came up with something different.
He did.
So why you got to fit in the categories with the BBWs? You
yeah,
came with a whole new category.
I need to make that. I need a T-shirt. Don't steal it. It's gonna say LCW, because we gotta show out for the girls who be straddling the fence. Like, you ain't just big and curvy, and you ain't just small. Like, we just.
But even with small chicks, to me, it's like I've talked to some small chicks about, oh, you know, I wish I looked like this girl because she got this booty, blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. And same thing with little dudes too. Some dudes be like, man, you know, I'm trying to bulk up and all this kind of stuff. For one, it's how you really present your stuff. I used to think I was like super skinny all the time, but then I used to wear some baggy ass clothes and try to be when I was like deep into hip hop. So like the stuff that I wore wasn't really complimenting my body type. So then either I looked even more skinny because I was skinnier, but then I'm wearing these big ass clothes, and I look like my clothes too big and I can't find that in my size.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's what we do sometimes. It's like bigger women, when you gotta wear your shit. And it's so funny, because I was going through my pictures recently, and I'm like, people always talk about like my Instagram videos and stuff, because you know me, I be dancing and just be real goofy. Right. And I'm just like, you know, I was looking through my pictures and I was like, I don't be looking like shit sometimes. No. I forgot. Like, I'm like, most times I do. You know, I'm cool with that. Like, when I got shit going on, most times I do. Honestly, I look my best on my worst days. And I think it's almost like a, you know, just
psychological.
It is psychological, because it's like, okay, I want to look, you know, I guess, feel how I look, you know, and so that's usually when I gotta put on. But if I'm confident in I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna throw this shit on and I'm gonna wear this shit.
And when you're confident and when you walk around with confidence, like, everybody feels it. Yeah, glad we had this conversation, because people need not to really judge people's relationships, for one. Okay. Every relationship is the same, and we talked about homosexual relationships, and I be thinking about them. They're no different from anybody else's relationship, especially hetero, because just like, for the most part, you couldn't tell somebody. Sometimes you can't really tell somebody's gay or not, right?
Right.
But like, especially if they get married, they want to have children. They want to be just like anybody else.
We didn't even get on children. We need to. That's next topic.
Yeah.
Just, you know, children in hetero relationships, and just conception and marriage and stuff. One of my friends, she just recently reached out to me and was just like, I'm tired. I just got married in like July. Now everybody like, when you gonna have a baby?
Right, yeah.
You know, and we gonna talk about that though. But we did have to cut this a little bit short, but we went long anyway. Yeah. So gonna have to have your editing, you know, supreme editing skills on that, Devin.
Next week, talk about like the conception, IVF,
all of that.
Yeah, because me and Tia, you know, we'll go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, and I want to carry somebody's baby. I know that's weird, but I really do.
We might have that conversation.
Yeah, we gonna have to have a conversation, because I thought I was gonna have to carry my sister's baby, but then she had one. So.
Okay.
But yes, that's a subject for another day.
Next week. We'll pick that up next week. So all right, y'all. Thank y'all again for tuning in to ConverStayShuns.